Calling all football fans and officials, get ready for an insightful discussion on Whistle Talk as we welcome Coach Joe Daniel, a seasoned football mind with over 17 years of coaching experience and host of the Football Coaching Podcast. We'll dive into the crucial roles of officials in upholding the game's integrity, dissect major rule changes and their impact, and tackle the ever-evolving player safety rules. Don't miss this opportunity to gain valuable insight from a true expert in the game. That's coming up next on Whistle Talk.
Are you a football fan? Have you ever found yourself wondering what in the world was that ref thinking? Well, Mike D, the referee, is here to help. Join me on Whistle Talk as I talk to professionals on the field and in the booth to help you understand what is going on inside the mind of a football official.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our next episode of Whistle Talk. Today, I got the pleasure of being joined by Coach Joe Daniel. Coach Daniel is coming to us from the state of Virginia, so first person I've had on from the state of Virginia. Coach Daniel, though, is a special guest because of not only his coaching experience, but he's also kind of in the podcast business like myself, or I should reverse that and say I'm getting into the podcast business like Coach Daniel here. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Coach Joe Daniel. Coach, thanks a lot for joining us tonight.
Oh, thanks for having me on here.
Absolutely. Coach, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, your experience, and your show you got going?
So I've been a mostly high school football coach for the last 20 years. 1 year of JUCO in Iowa, but the rest of it mostly in Virginia, coaching high school. Currently offensive coordinator at Colonial Heights High School in about 30 minutes south of Richmond. And then I'm also the founder of Joe Daniel Football and JDFB Premium Coaching Systems and the host of the Football Coaching Podcast, which has been, as far as I know, the longest running longest running podcast. Probably have produced the most episodes. We're somewhere in the 700s of episodes, I think. Whatever, around 50 podcasts a year, 52 for the last 5 years. We've been really consistent, but early on it was a little tougher. But Football Coaching Podcast, been doing it for 14, 12 years, I think.
Well, Coach, welcome to episode 16 of Whistle Talks. I got a long way to go to reach your levels, but hopefully someday.
I hope that here's what I know about my podcast is I hate the first 6 months of my podcast. I hate them, and I never want to listen to them again. So hopefully this will be a little better than that. Now, also, we've got a lot better equipment now than what we had to piece together in 2012.
Yeah, I would say that, and I'm still just working out of extra bedroom right now, but the cameras are getting better, the microphones are getting better, so hopefully my interviewing gets better.
This is, as we talked about before, I have all of this nice equipment. It's not that nice, but my internet's down, so I'm on a phone, and so you're probably not getting as good of sound quality as my normal from me, but I hope it'll turn out pretty well.
Well, right now I could hear you crystal clear, and I could also see that Darth Vader in the background, so you don't sound like him right now, so we're all good.
Perfect. I got to catch that thing in. That's a full change jar.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. One day I'll buy something with it.
So, Coach, tell us about the website that you got, the Joe Daniel Football.
Yeah, when I decided back in 2008 and then into the 2009 season that I wanted to be a college football coach, and I was 28, about to turn 29, and I thought that my window of opportunity for it was for trying that venture was going away, and so I decided to figure out how to make some money because I knew I was going to get a job as a college coach, not making as much as I was making as a teacher if I got one. I was correct. I got a $2,500 stipend. I lived in a dorm on the same hall as the players, so I was a de facto RA. And I got a meal plan that I usually missed because I usually had weight training or practice.
Or meetings. Don't forget about the college meetings.
And the meetings. And or I was on the road recruiting. So, but I knew that was going to happen, and I started trying to figure out how to make some money. And on the side, I started a blog, and that was originally footballdefense.com long ago, and started blogging, and eventually turned that into creating some coaching systems and wrote a couple of ebooks, and then that eventually became Joe Daniel Football, which is a resource. We work mostly with small and medium-sized schools rural schools and smaller schools, and we work with youth more and more with youth programs in the last few years. We had, our middle school programs had a 750 win percentage last year. So this stuff works at every level, offensive and defensive systems. And we just, our tagline is Coach Simple, Play Fast, Win. It's all about simplifying the game so that your kids just can kind of uncork their abilities and not be slowed down by all these complex schemes and things that we see on, we see them all the time on Twitter and stuff, and guys. And I, it's fun for those guys to do, drawing up, here's what they're doing in the NFL, which is funny. We've had NFL players on our podcast who are like, yeah, we don't do all that. It's not that complicated. The quarterback's complicated. It's complicated for the quarterback. It's simple for everybody else, So it's really interesting.
Your play calls are not like John Gruden's?
No, nothing like John Gruden's. Absolutely not. Gruden's, they sound complicated, but they're very descriptive, and it's just a different way of looking at it. A lot of high school coaches want one-word calls, and a lot of NFL and college, a lot of them will do one-word calls, but a lot of them also will just put all the information in the call, and it sounds like a long call, but everybody's told what to do, so it's different ways of being simple.
One thing that I learned from my coaching days, and actually this was from coaching lacrosse at one of the clinics I went to, and it's always stuck with me, and you brought it up before about Twitter, but they always taught me, when I coach in Twitter speak. And I was like, what the heck are you talking about? But when Twitter first came out, you were limited to 120 characters or whatnot?
Yeah.
140. So keep it simple, explain it quickly, get it in there, and get the kids running around. That's how they're going to learn the best. So that's good stuff. I like how you're running the program, and I have listened to a couple of the episodes of the show. I'm not going to lie. I was just listening to on my ride home today about I implemented power into our youth program. So I'm going to be putting in some counter stuff with it. So something that I've always liked to do, and trying to get it more to the younger kids and having them learn it now at this age so that when they get into high school and hopefully college, everybody's running some version of power. Everybody's running some version of a counterplay. So let them learn it now.
Yeah, and with the youth programs, what we found with our youth programs is, for any youth coaches, if you get really good at one thing, just one thing, power is a good example. So we encourage our youth coaches, and generally, we're not working a lot with the really young kids, but the 10 and under, 12 and under type leagues, we are working in. And if you can execute a play like power really well, everything else becomes really easy, because those other teams will have to make such wild adjustments to stop that play that you're great at, that, like you mentioned, counter. Like when everybody slides over to where my H-back is, I run the counter, and we don't have to be that good at it because you're outnumbered over there. And that's the goal of how we set it up with the youth.
So that's awesome stuff. So anybody out there get a chance to take a listen to the football coaching podcast, definitely jump on over to the websites and take a look at that. Some great resources out there for the high school and youth coaches that I know I have listening, and maybe even some of those college guys. And also for some of the fellow referees out there, because I myself, I'm an umpire. So with my coaching background, I enjoy being in the middle of the field. So it's actually helped me out of understanding offenses. And all of a sudden I see power and I see that hole coming wide open. I see the running back smiling behind the mouth guard. I know I'm being used as a pick. It helps me prepare a little bit better for the on-field experience myself. So.
Yeah, I've never thought about the official side of. It seems like if the official kind of can see the picture as a coach, even if we don't call the play, we kind of know what we do and what the opposing team does. And so once we start to see the play develop, we kind of know how everything's supposed to go as you get more experience. And so I've never thought about it, but as an official, if you kind of start to see that thing unravel, it's like, okay, I can anticipate where everything's going to go.
Yeah, it's definitely, and I used to be an all offensive lineman too, so that's my spot when I was coaching, being in the middle of the field and seeing that stuff. So I kind of feel at home with the big hog mollies in the middle. So I enjoy it in there.
Hold those flags then. Let us get in tight. We'll keep the hands inside. You just
that's. Coach, one of the things that I've been stressing to a bunch of the officials is, especially when I'm doing a JV or a freshman game, that I don't even want to take the flag out of my car on those nights. And Because it's still learning. They're still learning how to play the
Right.
game of football. So if I can go into a huddle and say, hey, 76, you got to work the hands inside. You got to move the feet a little bit more. Like, I'll coach the kids up as best I can. And I do that on the varsity level too. I'm going to talk to kids first before I'm going to throw a flag. I don't want to throw a flag. I want to spot the ball, wind the clock, get going, play football. So,
Yep.
yeah, I do agree with you. I joke around. I say I want to be like Homer Simpson. I want to kind of blend back into the hedges in the middle of the game that nobody sees me and just play football from there.
Much more concerned with our officials having control of the game than getting every little rule call that they can find. That I think is the you guys' biggest role.
I agree. And actually, you kind of just led right into my first question that I have for you about officiating. Discuss what you like to see the roles of officials playing in the game, fair play, maintaining integrity, different things like that. So you just gave us a great example of it, but anything else?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is, occasionally we see, the games start to get out of hand, feelings get hurt, and kids get front, they're kids. So we want to see officials that can maintain control of the game, and you can feel it when an official has control, and you can feel it when officials are starting to lose control of a game, and and that gets, I've been on the sidelines, unfortunately, when that big brawl broke out. And that's, that as somebody who, has been there, that's ultimately what we want to never, ever have happen, is a out of control situation, a dangerous situation like that. I also, like you said, I want our officials to be part of educating our players on the game. No coach ever wants to see an official yelling at one of our players, because we look at those guys as our kids. We can yell
Absolutely.
at them, it's that feeling, we can yell at them, you can't, but you come talk to me, that kind of thing. But I love to see when the officials will educate a player, within the flow of the game, not to break the flow of the game, but within the flow of the game, to educate a player on a certain situation, especially if they're communicating with the coaches as well. And I think that's, as long as we know what's happening, we're comfortable with that. Helping our, we're all trying to develop these kids with, people, I think from the outside will look at it as, all these kids are trying to get scholarships and you're trying to win championships. And it's, at the end of the day, 95% of them are not going to get a scholarship. There's, in the state of Virginia, only 6 teams are going to get a state championship. The rest of us are going to end our season with disappointment or a loss. And so, we're all, those are important. We do have jobs on the line. In high school level, it's usually only the head coach who's on the line, but, that head coach has a teaching job, and if, you get fired from it, you get fired from the coaching job, you're probably not sticking around to teach. And so there are high stakes, but at the end of the day, it's about developing those kids. And that's what we all have to be concerned with.
I love that you brought that up about the player development too, because I couldn't agree with you more. Like I said, I'm still coaching my son's youth program right now, so I'm still involved with it, and I'm lucky enough. 99% of the officials that we get for those games, I know that they're in my association because of the region that I live in. But I still do know a couple of officials that want to be flag happy, and my son played an 11-year-old football last year, and we're like, come talk to us. Let me know what's going on. We'll pull the kids out if we need to. We'll talk to them. Just help us help them. Like, we're all trying to grow the game. And as a crew on the high school game, my head official and myself, we meet with the coaches each side before the game, and we tell them, we're like, listen, coach, if we see one of your kids getting out of hand, we're going to go to you first as the coach. We're going to say, hey, coach, hey, 54 is getting out of line. Just letting you know. Now, what you do at 54 at that time, that's on you. We're not saying, coach, you got to pull him, but when you get a chance, talk to him. But we're letting you know that, all right, he's kind of in that gray area, so we don't want to bang him for the 15 yards. We don't want anything like that. We want them to play football, and we do understand it's a contact sport. It's an emotional game, and these kids have been busting their ass since who knows when in the weight room and in practices and different things like that. We don't want to cheat them of the opportunity, but we also want to maintain the safety of the game too and the integrity of it.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think that's one of our big, like you said, we do put lots and lots of work, and we know what the officials are there to do. You hate to see, and I know that most officials do not want a game where people have put 364 days of work into this day and this 2 hours and have it decided by somebody who showed up for that 2 hours. And so that's, and obviously you guys are putting in your work and everything, but like you said, we want everybody, it should be about the kids as much as possible. And we're all just there to kind of point them in the right direction.
So now, what are some tips that you talk to your teams about dealing with officials when, excuse me, when maybe a call didn't go their way or different things like that? How are some techniques that you guys are working on to play along with us as the officials, so to keep the game going smoothly?
Well, for most of our kids, we will assign a captain and an offensive and a defensive captain that will communicate with the officials. But most of our kids, we tell them, you don't talk back to the officials. You don't, yes or no, sir, with the officials and that kind of thing. And if they say something to you and you don't understand it or it's not, come to us. We'll deal with the head coach will deal with the officials. I think it's as much about managing your assistant coaches sometimes as it is the kids. Everybody
it can
gets
be
a little fired up.
times.
Yeah. They don't need 9 guys yelling the same thing at them. We can let one do it. Which is hard. We all have that reaction, but we want our kids to be respectful with the officials, to, obey any commands and that sort of thing, and then communicate when they're frustrated with us. And, we obviously, as the coaching staff or as the head coach, are going to try to go to bat for those kids, at times stand up for those kids, to make them, that's kind of where we have to use you guys sometimes, is to show that we are on their side. So,
No.
We try to get we want our kids to be, respectful of the officials. But I think the biggest thing that we've done in recent years is we have a player creed that I implemented with my team when I was a head coach, and I got it from Rick Stewart, who's at All Access Coaching, and we put this player creed in, and one of those things was five different things. And Randy Jackson, who wrote the Culture Versus Strategy book, which is excellent, has a version of this as well. But we have something, we have one of those things, which is expect adversity. And adversity is, things can happen, things are going to go wrong, and they're not always going to go our way. And, the officials might, maybe it was a bad call. A lot of times it's not. We think it is, but it's not. But maybe it was a bad call. But you know what? It really doesn't matter, because that's part of what we do. No different than fumbling a football. No different than somebody getting, the starting quarterback gets hurt. A call that doesn't go our way, whether you think it's a bad call or whatever, doesn't matter. Because part of what we are teaching our kids is that's part of the deal. And you've just got to work through it. And more as we stress that to our kids, and they have that moment, and the coaches do too. They have that moment where, I can't believe that they're doing this to us, and then to go, okay, it doesn't matter, reset. And of course, very rarely have I ever felt that an official had it out for us in reality. Yeah. So that's the kind of, but you do get that feeling.
So one of the coaches that I had on a previous episode, he actually has his players wear a wristband. And it's kind of, when something's not going their way, he kind of just gives a little tug on the wristband, which I got to tell you, NFHS rules, she's not allowed to have those jewelry on, but I didn't get into it.
I was wondering.
But it was a good idea that it kind of was, it had integrity on the wristband. And it was just something that he would kind of tug on and just say, hey, guys, we're dealing with adversity. Let's be smart about it. And things just aren't going our way. And it was kind of just a trigger point for his players. So I love hearing different things like that, because again, I get it. I coached for 20 years. I'm still in education, so I'm dealing with teenagers on a full-time basis. So I understand the emotion and things like that, and how kids kind of sometimes get it. Oh, you're out for me. You're this, you're that. And I'm looking to officiate a good football game. I'm looking not to be there, and I want that kid not to remember me, but to remember the sport of football. And sometimes things aren't going to go their way. And I'm working on this now. My son's 12 years old. you don't always get every single call. Sometimes it doesn't happen. My son plays football and baseball, and we were just down at a baseball tournament. And he got rung up on strike 3, and he's like, I'm like, it happens. Like,
Yeah.
It's going to happen. So how are you going to now play the rest of your game? Are you going to sit there and dwell that you didn't get a single strike call and have it affect the rest of your game? Or are you going to go out there and you're going to play defense, and then your next step back, try to crush the ball? So it's life lessons along with, okay, it's a game of football too. So it's great hearing you say different things like that.
Yeah. And it's one of, we also will use the reactions of other kids. So last year we had a pretty serious incident where a player actually tried to go after an official, an opposing player. They lost. We won a close game. The opposing player tried to go after the official at the end of the game. And we were able to use that as a teaching point for us, which was, look how ridiculous this is and how much trouble this could, 3 games and all those sorts of things. It could have been worse if somebody hadn't gotten to him before. I mean, so we can use that as because there is an us versus them type of thing, and when we can say, look, that's what they do. And we are not going to do that. We can use those teaching points too.
Yep. No, absolutely. So now talking about rules, you mentioned before about tucking that flag in nice and deep. What kind of rules, is there anything that you have seen recently that have really impacted the game? And you're an offensive coordinator now, so let's start off on the offensive side of the ball. Any type of rules changes that you've seen recently that you like that have impacted the game on a positive side?
When I think it came in 2018, the crack block, basically really kind of eliminating the blindside, crack block that was, it was dangerous, and taking that has essentially disappeared from the game. Taking that out, I think is a positive overall. We had to make adjustments, as anybody who knows our coaching systems. And I learned our systems from Bill Mountjoy, who's from here in Virginia and is all over the place. And our one back offense, one of the things that we always stress is don't block the corners. They're the worst tacklers on the field. So we always come down to block the safeties in our run game. And, a lot of that now we have to take a different angle and a different position because we can't just come in from the side. We used to get some fantastic blocks, We used to run our entire punt return scheme was to set up a wall, and one guy cleared the back of the wall and clean somebody up on the back of the wall. And so some of those things had to change. And, at first the officials weren't sure how to call it. We weren't sure how to teach it, but that's definitely one that's cleaned it up.
My first year in the association was when that rule came into play. And as a longtime coach, I used to also coach special teams. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And I sat in my cadet class. I'm like, wait a minute, really? We're taking that out? It's like, oh my God, that was the highlight film. That was you broadcasted it about. Like, here we go. This is what's going on. But looking back on it, I see how I was a little bit ignorant to it too, and I see that okay, the block still can be made. The box still can be good, clean, hard hits, but there's just a different way of teaching it. So,
yeah, and it took time to get it right for everybody, but now it's almost disappeared from the game, really.
Yeah, it's
the dangerous ones.
The times that we're seeing it more now still are on your broken plays. So on your punt returns, on a big scramble, on a change of possession, different things like that. And so as a coach, one of the triggers that we're looking for is opposite color uniform going different direction of the ball. If I see something going away from the flow or actually at the flow, something bad's usually going to happen from there. So that's that guy I'm going to kind of follow and see. But then when I see the hands come up or I just see open hands, different things like that, then we're like, all right, you got a football play. But when I see that blow up, and then typically that blow up ends up with a standover top too. So you can get them for 2 if you really wanted to. So
that's a good teaching point for our kids. And, I've gone more and more to, we used to, in coaching, we always did the perfect Thursday practice, and we'd go out there and do the script on Thursday. And I hate the script. And so what I've always looked for in recent years is let's find 2 things that we can teach our kids on Thursday. So that's a great one.
Oh, there you go. So Anything that you want to still see changed? Anything that you're like, hey, we need to rethink this rule?
I'll tell you, one of the most frustrating things is the pass interference. With the fact that the pass interference, I think what we run into, and I don't even know the exact rule because I'm as guilty as anybody. But as you know, the rules in the NFL and the rules in college and the rules in high school are different. So and so the calls are not consistent, don't feel consistent a lot of the times. In what is, face guarding's allowed, face guarding's not allowed. This, you can do this, you can put the hand, you can be here, you can be there. And so the calls, and of course it's been an issue in the NFL even in the NFL, it's been an issue just within their rules, of getting a consistent call on it. So those are the ones that are frustrating, are the consistency of those kinds of calls. We've gotten more and more consistent with the tackling rules and all of that. So, but the pass interference is the one that seems to still be difficult. And then I have one on the defensive side, but we can wait on that.
Okay. So I will agree with you with the pass interference call. It is one of the hardest ones to call because there's a gray area to say like that. There's still going to be an opinion on, was he trying to dislodge the ball? Did he get there before the ball? And the different things like that. And a lot of coaches don't truly know the rule of, it's not an automatic first down as it is in college and in the NFL. It's a 15-yard penalty. It's sometimes a half the distance penalty. So if it's 3rd and 15 from the 12-yard, from the 18-yard line, I should say, you're not getting a first down on that 15 yards because we're only going to go half the distance. So a lot of people don't realize that. And for the most part, the coaches do, but the sideline coaches that are up in the bleachers, they have no idea about it because that's not what happened with the football game over on Saturday and Sunday. So they're the ones that have a hard time with it.
One of the things with the kids is the kids will hear that. And so they'll think that for somehow the coaches and the officials that are actually on the field have no clue what's going on. And the guy up at the top of the stands, he absolutely is right. And we're all just insane. That's one of the more frustrating things, when we have to turn to the kids and say, it was illegal or it wasn't. Settle down.
Yeah.
The referee got the call right. Settle down.
Now, on a funny little side story, I was officiating a youth game one day, and we had the interference call, and we go with the high school rule on the pass interference call, and coach on the sideline screaming at me, it's got an automatic first down. I'm like, Coach, it's not Sunday. And then I look down at my watch, and youth games are being played on Sunday, and he's like, Mr. Official, it is Sunday. I'm like,
it is in fact Sunday.
Not what I meant, dang it. They got me on that one.
The players aren't getting paid. How's that?
I'm going to refresh that one. I like that one. Although you don't know anymore.
Well, the NILs are, that's true. That may not work either for long.
All right. So with that, Coach, we're going to take a short little beer run break here. And when we come back, I got a little quiz for you. So we'll see what Coach Daniel knows on some of the rules here, especially the kick game ones. They tend to mess all the coaches up. So... And when we get back, we'll talk about some other type of some penalty enforcement, some safety rules and things like that. So everybody go out, grab yourself a nice cold one, and come on back and join us. We'll be back in a minute.
If you're enjoying today's show and you want to show your appreciation to Mike D, you can buy him a beer by clicking on the link in the show notes or go to buymeacoffee.com/Mike D the referee. And as always, make sure to click follow and give 5 stars. Thanks for listening. Cheers.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with Coach Joe Daniel. Coach, before we left, I mentioned we're going to jump right into our quiz now. So here we go with our flagged facts. Our flagged facts is our Whistle Talk quiz game for our coaches. So, Coach, are you ready for the first of 3 questions?
Let's do it.
All right, so here we go. Question 1. K-12's kickoff is short and lands at the R48, where it is scooped up on the bounce by K82, who takes it down to the R30 before he is tackled. Now, Coach, I mentioned pre-roll that I'm going to talk to you in the official language, but now I'll give it to you in layman's terms. Kickoff comes up a little bit short, lands at the receiving team's 48-yard line, where one of the kicking members picks up the ball and runs down to the 30-yard line. What do you think is the result there, Coach?
I am an onside every time guy. So we spend a lot of time teaching our kids all of the rules of the onside kick. And so we can't return it, or we can't, if we recover it, it's dead there.
That is 100% correct. So will be K's ball, 1st and 10 from the 48-yard line. Officials should blow the whistle dead right away, because one of the worst things that we want is the ball returned all the way down and then have to bring it back. And you got the crowd going nuts on why did you cheat us on that one? But it's also a safety factor too. We don't want any unnecessary play where somebody could potentially get hurt and we're like, oh, well, that should have been done back there. So, but it is going to be K's ball, 1st and 10 from the 48. So 1 for 1, coach. All right. Question number 2. A, 3rd and 7 from the A 27-yard line. B 20 intercepts the ball and returns it to the A 25, where they fumble the ball. The ball is then recovered by A 18 at the A 25, where they're downed. So in this scenario, you got 3rd and 7 from the 25. Ball gets picked off. It's returned to the 25-yard line, where they fumble the ball, and it gets recovered by the offense. Coach, what do you think you're going to have? First question, who's going to have the ball next? That one's a pretty easy one.
Yeah, so you threw an interception and then you recovered the fumble. The person that intercepted it fumbled it, and you recovered the fumble. So you have the ball back with a essentially new possession. So possession and 10, 1st and 10. Correct.
That's absolutely correct. So it's going to be A's ball, 1st and 10 from the 25-yard line. And if you look at the breakdown of how this play is, it's 3rd and 7 from the 27-yard line. So in order for them truly to have gotten a first down, they would have needed to cross the 20-yard line, 20-yard line being the line to gain. But in this scenario, they got the ball back at the 25. So a lot of people would say, hey, it's 4th and 5 from the 25. But because the change of possession twice, it is now a new set of downs. So it's going to be 1st and 10 from the 25-yard line.
That's one of those where it's unfortunate that the high school officials don't have a microphone, because no one in the stands is going to understand what's going on.
Yep, you are correct. And it is something that we're going to go over and talk it over with the coaches and let them know. But yeah, unless you got somebody good up in the booth that's on the clock that can relay to the scoreboard people and the microphone people, a lot of people don't get that one. All right, so last play, and I kind of blew it here on mine end. I put the answer already up there, but quarterback A15 fumbles the ball in the neutral zone, or behind the neutral zone, I should say, so in the offensive backfield. While the ball is loose, B64 pushes A27 in the back as they're both trying to recover the ball. So, Coach, if you could read that, what do you think you got?
Yeah, so this one's interesting because as I'm reading it, I'm going, it makes sense to me that you're allowed to push or pull trying to reach a loose ball. But it kind of brings to mind because the answer is up there. But it brings to mind like the way that we used to teach the onside kick, where we would try to clear somebody out, which we don't do anymore. And of course, we don't do that anymore. But it's interesting I've never thought about it in the pile. It makes sense, but the idea of like blocking somebody away from the loose ball almost, or in the back. That it's legal makes sense, but also kind of that's one of those that I would go over on a Thursday with our players.
Yeah. So it's more so, and the rationale kind of behind this one is typically not going to be, say, like on an onside kick where somebody's getting a 10-yard head start or a 15-yard run before they're making contact. This is typically going to be two players that are kind of like right next to each other, and you see a block in the back, but it's not really a block in the back. It's a loose ball, and everybody's just kind of going for that loose ball in that scenario. So it's not as much of a safety hazard, to say it that way, as you would get on the onside kick plays, where they're really working on trying to make those as safe as possible. And unfortunately, I don't know where the future is going to be with the onside kicks. And you saying you're an onside kick guy,
yeah,
that one's going to be an interesting one coming in the future.
I'm interested with some of the things that they're doing. There's a lot of things that are interesting in the UFL with how they're handling some of those things that maybe are looking for an answer. Of course, they also have they also got rid of the half the distance to the goal thing too.
Yeah, I know, and the fumble in the end zone too. They got rid of in the UFL.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things in one of the All-Star games that I worked is if a team wanted to go for an onside kick, it was basically 4th and 12 from the
Yeah.
48-yard line. And if they got the 12 yards, they continued with that possession. If they came up short, then the defense got the possession at that point, and they kind of just flipped it from there. So I'm wondering to see if that's going to be a kind of model that they may go with the kick stuff. Everything is getting a little crazy, but that would be one that I wouldn't be as opposed to as with some of the kick rules that they're putting into play.
Yeah, and it's, as a coach, I would much rather, even though, like I said, I love the onside kick, and with the rules where they are right now, in my mind, if I can steal a possession, it's a huge advantage. But with the game on the line, not onside kicking every time, but if I'm a regular kickoff team, and if I had a kid who could put it in the end zone, I would, but that just ain't the reality of small school football very often. And so, rather than kicking a line drive to a kid standing at the 20, who's the fastest kid in the county, I'm going to try to give us a chance at just in a scrum down there. But if I was a team that didn't onside all the time and the game was coming down to this, I would much rather put it on my offense to convert a 4th and 12. We work on, we have plays that can convert 12 yards. I would much rather have that play design, like a 2-point conversion type concept. We've got a special play for this, rather than a kickoff that we never do, that we work on Thursdays and that's it kind of thing. That makes much more sense.
And a kick return team that they're sitting there trying to count. Do we have our hands team out here? Do we have the right people out here? Yep. So
hands team is the worst. Use it twice a year, and these guys are supposed to. It's all of your starting receivers that aren't on something else. Aren't normally on it, or they're usually in the back, and now you got to get them up on the front line, and
Yep.
a mess.
I could say as a special teams guy, there was one weekend I forgot to switch out one of our players who happened to be injured, and I'm sitting there counting up and calling for him, and I'm like, oh my God, he's injured. And now I have to scramble to try to find that backup in a late minute big time scenario that could be the game or not. So yeah, that's one of those interesting ones.
The bane of Perfect Thursday was calling out the hands team, and only 7 guys remember that they're on it.
Yes. Especially at the high school and youth level.
Yes.
All right. So, Coach, 3 for 3. Well done. Well played.
2 for 2, and then a gift.
Well, I had faith in you. So now, before we went on break, you had brought up when we were talking a little bit about the blindside blocks. Another safety type of play I wanted to talk to you about were cut blocks. And it's definitely improved that I could say on the officiating level. It's definitely improved in the last couple of years with the different implementation of the cut rules, meaning that it has to be immediate at the snap of the ball to the defender on the line of scrimmage. But you as an offensive guy and pre-production and in the beginning of the show, we were talking about counter plays and different things like that. Are you seeing defenders cutting out your offensive linemen on different plays?
Yeah. It's one of the most frustrating things as a power counter guy is when they teach the defensive ends to a cannonball technique or kick out guy. And, I hate that technique. I do not teach that technique. And it's very frustrating to me when we see it. And I remember the first time that we were a power counter team. This is 2005, I think. Later than that, maybe 2007, 2008. We were running power, and we took a kid who had been an offensive lineman, who was a good athlete, and we made him our H-back, and it's the first game of the season. They had seen, we had scrimmages filmed, so they had seen it. And they cut our H-back the first 2 plays of the game. And our head coach called a timeout and went not to the middle of the field, but to the coach on the far sideline.
Oh,
who
wow.
Who had been a coach with us years before, and went all the way across the field to him and screamed at him, "I cannot believe that you would teach a kid to do that." Which was an awkward moment, and the officials didn't even know what to do. And I think that there was a moment where the officials thought that he was going to be done, and I think that there was as things calmed down and it was realized that these are 2 guys that know each other. It was kind of like, let's just not do that again. That was an interesting one.
So that is actually illegal to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and a lot of times it does get missed, and I could say it from the official standpoint, it does get missed usually on the first time. I could say that usually it happens so quick, and I know that I've gone to my wing guy from the middle of the field. Did he just get cut? Because you're focused on the interior of the box, and sometimes the wing guys are looking there. But that is a 15-yard penalty. That is a block below the waist. And people are like, well, it can't be a block. They're on defense. No, it's a block below the waist. It is an illegal play. It is a dangerous play, and we need to get rid of it. One word of advice I can give to you and all the other coaches that are out there in the pregame conference. We always ask, Coach, is there anything that you've seen on film from the other team that you want us to keep an eye out for? And if you tell us, hey, we've seen them a couple times where they're cutting on the perimeter or cutting our linemen on the perimeter, because again, the defensive line is allowed to cut the offensive line as long as it's immediate at the snap of the ball to another lineman that is lined up on the line of scrimmage. But an H-back coming from the backfield out on the perimeter, that's a 15-yarder all day.
Right.
So if you do happen to see that, definitely make the officials aware of that, because it is something that we want to completely eliminate from the game. So it's a safety factor.
We see different things too. We see guys try to figure it out. And I've told the story on my podcast many times. A team that actually ran the same offense as us. And so they ran our truck toss play where we pull the tackle to kick the corner, but they were actually pulling to kick our outside linebacker overhang safety. I had about 165 pound. He was about 6'1", 165 pounds. It was a sophomore, and he was an outside linebacker out there. And they had a tackle named Morgan Moses, who's in about his 12th year in the NFL now. And Morgan Moses is one of the nicest people I've ever met. But as a high school athlete, as any NFL athlete is in high school, Morgan Moses was a freak. He could run as fast as anybody carrying a football, but he was, 300 pounds doing it. And so Morgan Moses is pulling to come kick out my sophomore outside linebacker. And in a coaching point of self-preservation, I said, fall into a ball. He's going to block you. And if he just falls over top of you, that's the best we can hope for. But I see that. And what we see guys doing is we see guys kind of, we see that instead of coming and cutting him, we'll see them kind of just fall into a ball. Or we'll see them pretend to trip, which is a creative one. And so there's always somebody trying to game the system.
Yeah. One of the harder ones that we've dealt with that particular play is the rainy day weather, because you do see the feet slip out from underneath them, and the coaches are screaming. 95% of the time, they're not looking to do that play. 95% of the time, their feet did slip, or like you're saying, self-preservation. They're not attempting to cut, but they're just trying to, lessen their impact of getting blown up. But yeah, it is something. I think the rules have definitely helped with the cut blocks.
Yeah.
2 years that I coached at the high school level, we were running the flex bone. And part of the heart of the flex bone was that backside cut. And I thought I did a good job as an old offensive lineman of teaching it correctly, but you're still teaching high school aged kids, and sometimes they get tired playing both ways, and the technique wasn't there, and all of a sudden we had a high-low, and the opposing player got injured. And I still to this day, I'm sitting here 20 years now talking to you about it because it's still in my mind. I feel guilty for that player. I don't know where he is now. Hopefully his knee's not still affecting him like my old knee is. But
one of the things we worry about with the cut blocks is when we stress is you have got to communicate to the guys next to you that you're about to cut, because they so they don't put a hand on that guy, so they avoid contact at all costs with that guy.
Yep,
it's a
some
big
type
deal
of
for our
keyword, some trigger.
Yep,
buzzsaw, something like that. Tree, cutting a tree. Yep, I've gone through a bunch of different ones in my day. So a new one that now with the NFL, and this one just popped into my head, but the hip drop tackle. What are your thoughts on the hip drop tackle?
I had to look it up. Tackle. When they passed that rule, I had to look it up. I looked it up, and I looked at the technique, and I said, God bless anybody who could teach. Only an NFL player could execute this technique. So, we may do it sometimes, and it's not on purpose. I certainly, I can't even imagine teaching somebody, a high school kid, that technique.
No, I agree with you 100%. When I first saw the rule, I'm like, what are they talking about? We're taking out tackling now? And then I saw the videos of it. I'm like, all right, that guy is 260 pounds, solid muscle, running a 4.3, and now all of a sudden he's just dropping his legs out from underneath him. I said, that's nothing that we're going to be able to teach. That's few and far between of an athlete that you're going to be able to physically do that and bring the person down with you. I
Yeah.
understand the rationale behind it because it was leading to a lot of blown knees. But I'm going to tell you right now, if they put it into high school, it is going to be a pain in the ass to try to call that one. Because that one,
Yeah.
just like we're talking about that cut block, that one, there is a lot of gray area with that.
It's a very specific
Yeah.
kind of movement.
So one last question about penalties. What's your thoughts on holding as an offensive guy?
I teach our linemen that, first of all, hands inside. In fact, we teach a technique, which a lot of people don't love this. And I got it from a guy named Lou Johnson, who's here in Virginia, retired now, but Lou's a big wing T coach. And at one point, Lou hired a guy to be he was a player of his in high school, who then went and played, I believe, at the Division I level college, and then hired him back as his offensive line coach. And they were using some zone type schemes at that point.
Okay.
And, his offensive line coach went down there teaching the way that they do it in college with the getting the hands under and all this sort of stuff. And he said they were terrible. So the way that he taught the way that he taught blocking in his wing T is not the shoulder blocking that maybe you might have
Not
done
the
with
old
the flex
flipper.
bones. Well, it's not, we're not flat back. We're getting, when I teach our kids to stick their hand out to the side, take their thumb, put it in their belly button, and we block with big surface. So I want to get my chest, my front deltoid, my bicep, my forearm. I want all of that on you when I'm using my zone blocking. So we actually don't shoot the hands into him. And I tell them this offhand, we can get inside and get up under, grab a little gut, grab a little belt or whatever.
Okay.
Down inside, but we're getting that big surface on them. So whenever we get a holding call, that tells me, number one, you probably weren't using the technique that we teach. But I also teach them, I don't think the official is going to throw it more than 4 times. That's the rule that I use it on holding and on pass interference. I always tell our kids, they'll only throw 4 of them, and so we just got to pick our spots with them. And I've had kids test that pass interference one. Like you wouldn't believe. And sure enough, it cuts off at about 4. Maybe once we've had more than 4. But that's, I tell them that, hands inside, as long as your hands are inside the frame of the body, then they're not going to call it. But what you have to know is when that guy starts to separate from you, you have got to release him. And so what we teach instead is when that guy starts to separate from you, to accelerate your feet and try to knock him down and use his momentum against him that way.
One of the things that I was taught as an all offensive lineman is when I feel them starting or trying to disengage from me, that's typically when their focus goes away from me to the ball carrier. That means that the ball carrier is closer to me. And like you said, that's when I'm looking to get that pancake block. That's my hog glory right there, is getting that pancake block. Now, it didn't always happen, but I never got called for a holding penalty in my high school or college career. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I never held, because I would be lying through my teeth. But I did it to a point that I knew my limits. I knew when to let it go. And the one thing that I always said as a former offensive line coach was, if you're getting called for holding, it's typically a lazy foul. And what I meant by that, and not to insult anybody, but it's usually you're not running your feet. It's usually, okay, your hands are in a good placement, but all of a sudden they disengage. Now what are you doing? Are you flat-footed, and now you're just reaching and grabbing? And that's typically where you find it. Not often, not always that way, but it would. That's how I would describe it to our players. You're being lazy at that point.
The one that we get is the hip toss. That at the end of the block, and that's the most frustrating one with our kids, is when they get that, because it's, number one, it's dumb. Like you said, it's lazy because I'm rotating my upper body, but my feet aren't doing anything, because otherwise it would be, a pancake. And number two, it is almost always separate from the action, and so you are doing it on a stage in front of the official. That's the one that frustrates me the most.
Yeah, it's normally your outside tackles that are one-on-one. and they get hit for it. Coach, I can honestly tell you, though, I have worked one game in the middle of the field where one player would have failed your tests. I hit him for 5 holding penalties himself, one player. And I was baffled by it because he did it 3 plays in a row, the same technique of not moving his feet. Literally, you saw cloth coming here on the kids. And I'm like, you got to get the hit wrapping around. And the coach is now screaming at me. I'm like, Coach, I'm an offensive lineman. I don't want to throw this flag. I said, but you're running to his direction. A, point of the attack. I have to call it. B, he's bear hugging the opposing player. And I've already warned him that I'm going to throw it on him. I said, I can't now not throw it. I'm like, do something, please. Help me help you. But yeah, 5 times. It's the most that I've dropped.
See, you were desperate not to do that too.
I don't want to do that.
I stand by my rules as long as we aren't dumb.
Bingo. So, Coach, with that, I'd like to once again thank you for coming on the show tonight. It's been fantastic. Is there anything else that you would like to add to our listeners? Again, plug where they could find your show, your websites.
Yeah, you can go to joedanielfootball.com and you can find all of our previous episodes on our blog there. And of course, you can get we have some free downloads right now. Of course, they change. But right now we have a PDF download that's 40 Coach Simple Rules for football coaches that want to win games is the title, and it goes through 40 tips, tricks, strategies, tactics that I think will win you a football game as a coach. That are really important things to look at. One of those in there will win you a football game for sure. So you can check that out. You can get our podcast anywhere. It's Football Coaching Podcast. Myself and my coach, Daniel Chamberlain. We put out new episodes every Thursday, right? Yeah, every Thursday. We have new episodes. And then they also go up on YouTube, which you can go to joedanielfootball.com/YouTube. They go up on YouTube the following Tuesday. Okay. So if you prefer to watch them, you can get it there as well.
Good stuff, Coach. Once again, I truly appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. Spring football around the corner with the weight training, the speed work that you guys got going on down there. Appreciate you taking the time out and jumping on the show tonight. And anything that I can do to help you guys out, you have my contact. Feel free to reach out. If I can help you guys out, your players out with a rule interpretation or anything, I'm not claiming that I am any guru by any means, but if I don't know it off the top of my head, I can find it out for you very quickly. So please feel free to reach out. I appreciate you again coming on.
I appreciate it, Coach. I enjoyed it.
All right, Coach.
Official. Mr. Official. I'm so used to the coaches thing. You were a coach, though. Maybe I'll respond to it.
and you want to know something? 99% of the kids on the field. Yeah. But even the kids on the field still say, sorry, Coach. Okay, Coach. I just roll with it.
That's fine.
Yep. All right, Coach. Thank you once again. Appreciate it. And have a great season.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Whistle Talk, where we unravel the fascinating world of football officiating. If you enjoyed today's discussion and want to stay in the loop with the latest insights, be sure to subscribe to Whistle Talk on your favorite podcast platform. Stay connected with us by following Whistle Talk on social media, where we share behind-the-scenes glimpses, updates, and engage with our incredible community of officiating enthusiasts. Find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Just search for the words Whistle Talk. Your support means the world to the show, and we'd love to hear your thoughts, questions, or suggestions for future episodes. Drop us a line through our website or message me on social media. I'm always eager to connect with the fellow fans and continue the conversation. Until next time, keep blowing the whistle on the untold stories and nuances of football officiating. Thanks for being part of the Whistle Talk family. This is Mike D., the referee, saying so long for now.